how do you evaluate a personal injury case? In other words, what are you looking for in a negligence situation? And I can probably boil that down pretty easily so that you understand what a personal injury attorney does. First thing we're looking at is liability. Who caused the accident? Let's just talk simple personal injury, car accident, rear ender. We want to know who caused the accident, what was the liability issues. Number two, is there insurance? And number three, are there damages? And then we calculate the damages. So how do I analyze a case? Well, first, I'm going to look at, number one, a duty. Who had a duty? Well, the duty of the driver who caused the accident. He had a duty to drive in a reasonable manner, in a non-careless manner. In other words, when you're driving, you assume some type of responsibility that you're going to drive in a reasonable manner, not a reckless manner. You're not out there trying to cause an accident. Sometimes these things just happen. Element number two. So once we establish there's a duty out there, it's pretty simple. What's element number two? Element number two is, did you or that person who is driving the car breach that duty? You know, when you see one of our commercials, we talk about texting and driving. Well, you're not driving in a reasonable manner if you're texting and driving, and if you cause an accident. That's element number three. So you have a duty, you have a breach of that duty. Now the question is, did that breach of duty cause the accident? And you have two tests for causation, the proximate cause and legal cause. So look at the easiest way to look at a legal cause is say, but for the texting and driving, this accident wouldn't have happened. I think, yeah, that's pretty safe to say. If the person was paying attention and driving in a reasonable manner, it wouldn't have happened. Proximate cause is a little bit different. Proximate cause is what's called the foreseeability test. Is it foreseeable that if you're texting and driving and you're not paying attention to the road, you can cause an accident? Yes. I think it's pretty reasonable. Now I look at damages. And you have to have your lack of, element number two has to be causally related to element number four. So you go back and say, did that person have a duty? Yes, number one. Did they breach that duty? Yeah, they were texting and driving. Do you have causation? Did the breach of duty cause the damages? Yes, it did. Well, we have foreseeability and we have legal cause. Great. Now, do we have damages? And that's where we calculate the damages. Economic damages, meaning those dollar figures you can actually put a dollar figure on, lost time from work, blah, blah, blah. Or we have the non-economic damages. Non-economic damages are the pain and suffering, and you only get those damages in Florida if you sustain a permanent injury within a reasonable degree of medical probability. Sounds like a lot of information, but the reality is, just remember the three things we're looking for in a car accident: liability, damages, and insurance. Number two, what are the four elements of a negligence case? Duty, breach of duty, causation, and damages. If you could put those two together, you're going to have a successful case for a client, and you can help them. If one of those elements are missing, that's why you have lawsuits, and that's why you have attorneys fighting, because you have an argument to be made, and it's not always as clear-cut as some accidents are. There might be a superseding intervening cause. There may be something crazy happen. You never know. It's life, and that's why there's lawyers, as crazy as it sounds. But when you're looking at a negligence cause of action, that's exactly what we're looking for. That's the non-law school edition of what really happens. Because in law school, you're arguing over this point, that point, blah, 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 blah. But reality, from a layperson standpoint, that's what we're looking for. So I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, and I appreciate you bearing with me on that, but I thought it was a good question to put on the show because it really demystifies the process of what personal injury attorneys do and how we analyze a case. I mean, you got to remember, if there's no damages in a case, even if you have a duty, a breach of duty, and there's causation, but if there's no damages, you really don't have a negligence claim. What are you going to accomplish, or how are you going to bring justice to your client if they've not been injured? They could have been wronged, but if there's no injury, what do you compensate them for, or how do you compensate them? And it's funny because you think about it and say, well, that was wrong. Yeah, I agree, but what are the damages? And that's really always something that, as a layperson, they sit there and they look at you like, what? What do you mean? I don't want this happening to anybody else. I get that. but what are your damages? I don't know. I don't have any. Yeah, I know. And that's the bad part. So I get the bad job of explaining to people, yeah, sorry, but there's really no way to compensate you for your losses because you've had no losses. Alternatively, one of the worst things I have to do is tell people, yeah, I'm sorry, you have injuries and there is liability, but there's no insurance to compensate you for your losses. That's a hard thing because there are a lot of people out there driving with either no insurance to protect them if they hurt somebody or very, very, very little, minimal insurance. And if they cause an injury to somebody, an injury which may not be a huge injury, but it may be a $50,000 or $100,000 injury, and you've only got $10,000 of insurance. That's scary, and that's a position I never want to have anybody be in, but at least maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'm having this conversation with a new personal injury client saying, hey, thanks for coming in to see me. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do for you. What do you mean? How can that person drive around with no insurance? It happens all the time. It happens all the time. Or, what do you mean they only have a $10,000 policy? I've got a $100,000 case. Right, I get that. Here's what you do. How do you overcome that hurdle, folks? You go out and buy as much uninsured motorist as you can afford, or whatever your agent said is your maximum level. And the reason why is because you want to protect yourself. In my opinion, 40% of the people driving out there either have no insurance or are underinsured. Underinsured. If you buy a policy of insurance called uninsured or underinsured motorist, you're protecting yourself. You're putting yourself in the place of insuring that uninsured driver and saying, hey, if they are not going to do it, I'm going to protect myself from that uninsured driver. And then what you would do is you would make a claim against your own policy for those injuries. Now, I know a lot of people out there are saying, Carmen, you're nuts. I don't want to make a claim against my insurance. The rates will go up. Trust me, I tell you, folks, if you're truly injured in a car accident and you're missing time from work and you're missing time with your loved ones and you really need to be compensated, you're going to make the claim against your insurance company. That's what you bought it for. You'll be more mad at yourself if you didn't buy the insurance. You knew about it, you didn't buy the insurance, and guess what happens the very next day? Bam, you're in an accident with the uninsured driver, and then you're kicking yourself in the butt because you didn't listen and you didn't buy the insurance. Buy it before you get in trouble and you need it. It's better to have the insurance. And I know people don't, I have no money to buy insurance. I understand that. Trust me, I don't like the cost of insurance. I think it's outrageous. But if you don't have it and you need it, then you're going to be in trouble because that's going to be more costly. So, I'm not an insurance agent. I don't sell insurance. We sue insurance companies because they don't do the right thing, but that's irrelevant. What happens is if you don't have the coverage and you come see me and you say, Carmen, this is bad, this is wrong. I say, you're right, it's terrible. I wish you would have had the insurance. So we at our office offer a free policy evaluation. If you have a question about your insurance policy and you want to talk to a lawyer about it, I don't think that should cost you money. I think you should be able to get that for free. If you want us to look at your insurance policy, call our office. You could either meet with myself, you could meet with Amanda Downing. She's a partner in the firm. She'll be sitting there and talking to you about it, and she'll tell you where your policy is deficient. We've done this for a lot of people over the years, and surprisingly, it's the people who have the good policies who usually want to come in and see us. And we say, look, you've got a great policy, good for you. That makes them feel better about they're out there driving and they got their families in the car. If they don't have a good policy, we tell them, hey, this is where your policy is deficient. And if I were you, I would talk to my agent about different things to protect myself. And again, folks, I don't think you should pay to have an attorney look at that for you. It's my personal thing. I really believe that you should know these things. If your agent is trying to sell you something, that's one thing. I have no dog in that fight. I'm just out there saying, look, if you're injured, here's what you're allowed to collect against your own policy. And what if you're hit by an uninsured person?